All right, so today we're diving into import-export manager interviews in the computer industry.
It's a pretty fascinating field, actually. It's a global role that blends business with technology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've got this whole stack of RoleCatcher resources to unpack.
Yeah, career guides, interview guides, even insights into how AI is changing the whole hiring game.
So much good stuff. Let's start with what an import-export manager actually does.
I think a lot of people think it's just about shipping boxes.
Right.
Yeah,
But there's so much more to it than that.
it really is. You're dealing with international trade regulations, customs procedures, negotiating with suppliers across continents.
You're like the conductor of this global orchestra.
I like that analogy. And it's not just about getting the product from point A to point B. It's about building those relationships and ensuring a seamless and positive experience for everyone involved.
Okay. So now that we have a better picture of the job itself, let's talk about why this role is so hot right now.
Globalization is on the rise. Businesses are expanding overseas. And with the computer industry specifically, the supply chain is incredibly global.
Right, so that means there's a huge demand for skilled import-export managers.
And with that demand comes high earning potential international travel.
You're at the forefront of the tech industry.
But of course, competition is fierce. You've really got to stand out.
That's where RoleCatcher comes in. They've identified some key questions that are almost guaranteed to come up in these interviews.
Yes. And they provide insights into what interviewers are actually looking for. And even better, their AI tools can help you tailor your responses and practice your delivery for specific job roles. Imagine having a personal interview coach right in your pocket.
Okay, let's dive into those questions. The first one is pretty straightforward. Can you tell us about your experience with import-export regulations and compliance?
Definitely. It seems straightforward, but interviewers are digging for more than just a yes here.
It's about showcasing your depth of knowledge.
Right. Think about specific examples from your past roles. Maybe times you navigated tricky regulatory hurdles or ensured compliance with international trade laws. Or even times when regulations shifted and you had to implement new procedures.
So instead of just saying, yes, I'm familiar with regulations, you'd want to say something like, in my previous role, I spearheaded our company's compliance with the latest CTPAT security guidelines for shipments from China. This involved overhauling our container inspection procedures and working directly with our overseas partners to ensure they met those stringent requirements.
Exactly. That shows you have a hands-on understanding of import-export compliance. You've actually done it.
And be ready for follow-up questions, too. They might drill down on specific regulations.
Like, what are the key differences between Incoterms 2010 and 2020? Or how has the U.S.-China trade war impacted your sourcing strategy?
Those are tough questions. And that's where RoleCatcher's AI can be really helpful. You can practice answering those specific follow-up questions and get feedback on whether you're hitting the right points.
It's like having a personalized study guide and a practice partner, all in one.
Okay, question number 2. How do you manage and evaluate suppliers and vendors? This feels like a chance to talk about your organizational skills.
It is, but it's also about showcasing your strategic approach to supplier management. It's about more than just keeping things organized.
So have you negotiated favorable contracts? Implemented a system for vendor performance reviews?
Maybe even incorporated data analytics to guide your decisions. This is where you show you're not just managing relationships, you're actually optimizing them.
A good answer might be something like, I believe in a data-driven approach to supplier management. In my previous role, I developed a vendor scorecard that tracked key performance indicators like on-time delivery rates, product quality, and responsiveness.
Perfect. That shows you're not just going through the motions, you're analyzing, evaluating, and constantly improving.
Which ultimately impacts the efficiency and cost-effectiveness of the entire import-export operation.
Exactly. And it shows you're thinking about the big picture.
Now, here's one that I think is really interesting, especially for someone who thrives in international environments. Can you describe your experience negotiating contracts with overseas suppliers? I can already picture those tense negotiations happening across time zones and cultures.
This question is all about navigating the complexities of cross-cultural communication and negotiation. It's about building rapport, understanding nuances.
And communicating effectively even when language barriers exist.
Right. Think of a story that highlights those skills.
But keep it concise and focused on what the interviewer is looking for.
Instead of launching into a long, rambling story, focus on the key takeaway. For example, you could say something like, in my experience negotiating with suppliers in Japan, I learned the importance of building personal relationships and understanding unspoken cultural cues.
It's not just about getting the best deal.
Right. It's about building lasting partnerships based on mutual respect and understanding.
And I bet RoleCatcher's AI can help you fine-tune that anecdote. Make sure it's hitting the right notes for the specific company culture you're interviewing with.
Absolutely. You can even practice different phrasing and see how it resonates with the AI's analysis of the company's values and communication style.
Pretty amazing. Okay, moving on to a question that's all about problem solving. Can you give an example of a time when you had to resolve a shipment issue? Everyone loves a good problem-solving story.
Yeah, but what if you've never had a major shipping catastrophe?
I'm already thinking about that time a pallet of graphics cards got held up in customs because of a paperwork snafu.
Ah, yes, those happen. But even if your shipping history has been relatively smooth sailing, you can still talk about a time you had to solve a complex problem under pressure.
It's about highlighting your critical thinking skills.
Your ability to stay calm and your resourcefulness.
So even if it wasn't a literal shipment issue,
Mhm.
any example that demonstrates those skills would be relevant.
Exactly. Remember, a good problem-solving story has a clear beginning, middle, and end. Set the scene. What was the issue? How did you approach it? What steps did you take? And what was the outcome?
And don't forget the most important part. What did you learn from the experience?
That's key. Interviewers want to see that you're able to reflect and grow from those challenges.
Okay. And this question seems pretty straightforward, but I'm sure there's more to it than meets the eye. How do you ensure timely and accurate delivery of goods? Isn't that just about logistics?
Logistics is key, for sure, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. Think about all the moving parts involved in getting a product from point A to point B.
You've got suppliers, manufacturers, shipping companies, customs officials.
And ultimately, that end customer eagerly awaiting their shiny new computer.
It's about orchestrating the entire process.
Right. This is your opportunity to demonstrate big picture thinking. How do you communicate with different teams to ensure everyone's on the same page? What processes have you put in place to manage inventory, track progress, and anticipate potential delays?
I'm seeing a pattern here. Many of these questions are designed to assess your strategic thinking and how you manage complex processes involving multiple stakeholders.
Often across different countries and time zones?
And that's where RoleCatcher's AI can be really helpful again. It can help you refine your answers and make sure you're highlighting the most relevant points for the specific role you're applying for.
It's about making sure your message is clear and concise.
Okay, question number 6. How do you stay up to date on changes in import-export regulations? This seems especially important in a field where regulations are constantly in flux.
Absolutely. The world of international trade is constantly evolving. New regulations pop up, trade agreements are renegotiated, and global events can send shockwaves through import-export procedures.
So you need to show your commitment to continuous learning.
And your adaptability.
Yeah.
Be specific. Mention the resources you rely on: trade publications, online courses, professional organizations. Maybe you even took the initiative to implement new procedures based on those updates, or trained your team on those new regulations.
That's a good point. It's one thing to be aware of a new regulation. It's another to know how to put it into practice.
Exactly. It's about showing that you're proactive and that you take the initiative to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay. Question number 7 brings us to the bottom line. Can you give an example of a time when you had to manage a budget for an import-export project? Time to talk numbers.
Yes, but it's about more than just reciting figures. It's about showing your strategic approach to financial management in this context.
So they want to know that you understand the financial implications of every decision.
And that you can effectively plan and manage resources.
So what kind of example would really impress them?
Think about a time when you had to make tough decisions to balance cost efficiency with other crucial factors, like delivery timelines or maintaining product quality.
Maybe you negotiated a better rate with a shipping company, or found a more cost-effective sourcing option.
Or streamlined a process to reduce waste. Whatever your example, quantify your results. Did you save the company money? Deliver the project under budget? Solid numbers make a strong impact.
I'm sensing a theme here. Quantifying your achievements is a winning strategy for most of these interview questions.
Absolutely. Back up your statements with concrete evidence and measurable results whenever possible. It shows you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
All right, let's tackle the final question in this set. Can you explain your experience with customs clearance procedures? This one feels like it could make or break the whole interview.
It's a critical stage. Any misstep can lead to costly delays or penalties.
So they want to see that you understand the complexities of customs regulations.
That you're fluent in the required documentation.
And that you have a proven track record of getting shipments cleared without a hitch.
A good story about a time you smoothly resolved a customs issue would be a home run here.
Like maybe you dealt with a missing document or a product that was misclassified.
Or even a surprise inspection. How did you handle the situation? What steps did you take to resolve the issue and ensure it wouldn't happen again? This is where your knowledge of customs procedures really shines.
This has been so helpful. I feel much more prepared to tackle these questions already.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, preparation is key.
But before we move on, I wanted to touch on those tricky follow-up questions interviewers love to throw in. How do you handle those curveballs?
It's about staying calm, thinking logically, and drawing upon your knowledge and experience.
Easier said than done when you're in the hot seat.
True, but there are strategies you can use. Don't be afraid to pause and gather your thoughts. It's better to take a moment to formulate a thoughtful answer than to rush into something you'll regret.
And what if you're completely stumped?
It's okay to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers off the top of your head. You could say something like, "That's an interesting question. I'd need to do a bit more research to give you a fully comprehensive answer. However, based on my experience, I can tell you." And then share any relevant insights you do have.
I like that. It shows you're willing to learn and that you're not afraid to admit when you don't know something.
Honesty and intellectual curiosity are always valuable, especially in a field like import-export that's constantly evolving.
Now, speaking of intelligence and resourcefulness, let's shift gears and explore the career insights RoleCatcher provides. They break down the different stages of an import-export manager's career path, which I think can be really helpful in framing your own goals and ambitions.
It's valuable to understand where this role could take you in the long run,
It allows you to articulate your goals during the interview.
and to demonstrate that you've thought about your future within the company.
They start with the entry-level import-export coordinator. What does that typically involve?
At this stage, you're assisting in coordinating and managing import and export activities. You'll be learning the ropes, gaining hands-on experience with documentation, compliance, and the logistics.
So it's all about building a solid foundation.
Exactly. And if you're going into an interview with entry-level experience, you want to highlight your eagerness to learn and your ability to quickly grasp new concepts and procedures.
Showcase your enthusiasm for the field.
And don't underestimate the value of soft skills.
Employers at all levels are looking for individuals who can communicate effectively, work well in teams, and adapt to new situations.
Those are essential skills no matter what stage of your career you're in.
What about the next step up, the import-export supervisor? What kind of responsibilities come with that role?
As a supervisor, you're starting to take on more leadership responsibilities. You'll be overseeing a team of coordinators, developing and implementing procedures, and taking a more proactive role in optimizing import-export operations.
So your leadership skills, problem-solving abilities, and ability to motivate and manage a team will really be put to the test.
It's a step up in terms of responsibility and decision-making.
And finally, we reach the coveted position of import-export manager. What does it take to reach this level?
This is where you're truly at the helm of import-export operations. You're developing and implementing strategies, managing budgets, negotiating contracts, and leading a team of professionals to ensure the smooth flow of goods across borders.
It sounds like a demanding role.
It is. It requires a comprehensive understanding of international trade, strong leadership skills, and the ability to think strategically and make sound decisions under pressure.
So if you're aiming for a manager position, you'll need to showcase your track record of success in all of those areas.
And don't forget to emphasize your passion for the field and your commitment to continuous learning. The import-export landscape is constantly evolving.
It's so important to demonstrate that you're adaptable and that you stay ahead of the curve.
That's a key takeaway for any aspiring import-export manager.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of import-export management. We've covered the key responsibilities, the challenges, the career path, and even how RoleCatcher's AI tools can give you a competitive edge in the interview process.
It's a lot to take in.
But before we move on to the next stage, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, the pros and cons of this career path. RoleCatcher outlines those quite clearly, and I think it's important to go into any career with your eyes wide open.
Absolutely. It's important to understand both the rewards and the challenges.
So let's start with the good stuff. What are some of the most appealing aspects of this job?
Well, the career guide mentions high earning potential, opportunities for international travel and networking.
And you get to work with cutting-edge technology.
Oh, incredibly appealing, right?
Definitely. But I'm guessing it's not all sunshine and roses. What are some of the potential drawbacks?
Well, the guide highlights the fierce competition, which we've already discussed. It's a sought-after role, so you need to be prepared to really stand out from the crowd.
And it mentions the possibility of long and irregular hours, which
Right.
can be demanding, especially when you're coordinating across multiple time zones.
You're constantly on call.
And I imagine the work can be quite stressful, especially when you're dealing with tight deadlines, unexpected delays, and those ever-changing regulations.
Absolutely. The pressure to keep everything running smoothly can be intense. And of course, there's the need to stay up to date on those international trade regulations, which requires continuous learning and a real thirst for knowledge.
It sounds like they're looking for people who can thrive in a bit of chaos.
You could say that. But those challenges also underscore the importance of strong organizational skills, attention to detail, and a calm demeanor under pressure.
It's not a job for the faint of heart.
You could say that.
Now, you mentioned the RoleCatcher provides insights into the core abilities needed for this job. I'm curious to see how those align with the challenges we've just discussed.
Let's take a look.
Okay, they break it down into skills, knowledge, and abilities with percentages, indicating how frequently each one is required in the role. At the top of the list, we've got monitoring and critical thinking, both at around 58%. That makes sense, given the need to constantly assess performance, identify potential issues, and make strategic decisions.
It aligns perfectly with what we've been talking about. You need to monitor the entire process, from sourcing to delivery.
And use critical thinking to anticipate problems, assess risks, and make adjustments on the fly.
Exactly. You have to be able to think on your feet.
Next up, we have active listening and coordination, both at 57%. I'm guessing that speaks to the importance of effective communication and collaboration.
It does. You need to be able to listen to and understand the needs of your suppliers, your customers, and your internal teams.
And then you need to coordinate all those different pieces.
Make sure everyone is on the same page and working towards those shared goals.
It's like being the conductor of an orchestra.
I like that analogy. It really
Yeah.
captures the essence of this role.
And it highlights the importance of those soft skills that are sometimes overlooked. It's not just about the technical aspects of import-export.
It's about communicating effectively, building relationships, and working collaboratively with people from diverse backgrounds and cultures.
Absolutely. Those are skills that'll serve you well in any career.
But they're absolutely essential for success in a globally interconnected role like this.
Okay. Moving down the list, we've got reading comprehension, speaking, and time management, all hovering around 55%. These seem pretty self-explanatory, but I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye.
There is. Reading comprehension isn't just about understanding basic instructions. It's about being able to interpret complex legal documents, trade agreements, and industry regulations.
You have to be able to really understand the nuances of those documents.
And speaking goes beyond casual conversation.
It's about communicating effectively with stakeholders from different cultures, potentially even in different languages.
Right. And time management is about juggling multiple projects, deadlines, and time zones.
It's about prioritizing, delegating effectively, and staying organized amidst a constant flow of information.
It's a lot to handle.
I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed just thinking about it. But I guess that's why this role is so challenging and so rewarding.
Exactly. It requires a high level of skill, knowledge, and dedication. But it's also a career that offers the potential for significant growth and impact.
Okay, let's move on to the knowledge areas that RoleCatcher highlights. Not surprisingly, knowledge of transportation is at the top of the list at 67%. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory, especially in the computer industry, where components might be coming from all over the world.
Right. You need to understand the different modes of transportation, the costs involved, the time frames,
And all the various factors that can impact the movement of goods across borders.
like weather, political instability, or even natural disasters.
Okay, here's one I didn't expect to see so high on the list. Customer and personal service. It comes in at a whopping 75%. I wouldn't have thought of this as a particularly customer-facing role.
It's an often overlooked aspect of import-export management, but it's absolutely crucial. Remember, you're not just dealing with products, you're dealing with people.
So building strong relationships with your suppliers, your customers, and your internal teams is essential for success.
And providing excellent customer service can make all the difference in a competitive global market, like the computer industry, where reputation and trust are paramount.
It's not just about getting the product from point A to point B.
Right. It's about building trust, understanding the needs of your customers, and providing a positive experience throughout the entire process.
It takes more than just technical expertise.
You need empathy, communication skills, and a genuine desire to build strong relationships.
It sounds like those human skills are becoming increasingly valuable in a world where automation is taking over many of the routine tasks.
Absolutely. It's the human touch that will truly set you apart. It's really the key differentiator in today's business world.
Okay, so let's jump back into those essential knowledge areas that RoleCatcher outlines. Next up, we've got administration and management at 70%.
This one makes perfect sense considering you're managing budgets, resources, teams, the whole shebang.
It's about understanding those core business principles,
Strategic planning, organizational leadership. You got to be able to manage complex projects, delegate effectively, and motivate your team.
got to keep everyone moving towards those shared goals.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the next area, personnel and human resources, at 64%.
So this is all about building a high-performing team, right?
It is. You're likely going to be responsible for hiring, training, and supervising a whole team of professionals.
So understanding employment laws, identifying top talent, and creating that positive work environment.
All comes into play.
It sounds like a lot of responsibility.
It is. But it's also a fantastic opportunity to develop your leadership skills and make a real impact on the people you work with.
Okay, next on the list, we have native language at 57%.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that means English for us. But I'm guessing fluency in other languages would be a huge plus in this field.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in the computer industry, which is so global.
Knowing those key languages spoken by trading partners.
Can give you a serious edge. It's not just about communication either. It shows a commitment to understanding and respecting different cultures.
Which is so important when you're dealing with suppliers and customers worldwide.
It builds trust and rapport, that human connection we keep talking about.
Now, this one surprised me a bit. Mathematics comes in at 62%.
Yeah.
I would have thought of this as a math-heavy role.
You might not be doing complex calculus, but a solid understanding of math is definitely important.
You're managing budgets, analyzing financial data, calculating shipping costs, understanding currency exchange rates.
It's all about being comfortable with numbers and being able to interpret financial information.
Which goes hand in hand with those strong analytical skills we talked about.
It all ties together. The skills, the knowledge, the abilities, they create a well-rounded professional who can really navigate the complexities of international trade.
Okay, let's look at a few more. Public safety and security come in at 57%.
Yeah, it's about understanding the rules and procedures related to safe and secure transport of goods, especially valuable computer components.
Got to make sure nothing gets lost or damaged.
Exactly. Preventing theft, damage, security breaches, those could be disastrous.
Then we have production and processing at 60%. So understanding how those products you're importing and exporting are made and handled.
It's key, especially with how quickly the computer industry changes. You need at least a basic understanding of manufacturing processes, quality control, and packaging requirements.
You need to know what to look for when you're evaluating suppliers.
And make sure those products meet quality standards.
Okay, last but not least, administrative knowledge at 59%.
All that paperwork, documentation, record keeping,
Got to stay organized.
detail-oriented, proficient in using software and tools for managing documentation and tracking shipments.
It's the behind-the-scenes work that keeps everything running smoothly.
The unsung heroes of the import-export world.
We've covered so much. It's clear that an import-export manager needs a really diverse skill set.
A deep understanding of international trade and a willingness to constantly learn and adapt.
Especially in this fast-paced computer industry.
Right, and let's not forget those human skills.
Communication, collaboration, cultural sensitivity.
Building those strong relationships, they're what sets you apart in a competitive global market.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing. RoleCatcher talks about potential career advancements.
It's exciting to think about where this role can take you.
They outline several possibilities, which is helpful when you're trying to paint a picture of your future growth within the company during an interview.
Shows you've thought about the long term.
They start with a natural progression to Senior Import-Export Manager. So what makes this different from the standard manager position?
As a senior manager, you're taking on more of a strategic and leadership-oriented role. You'll be overseeing a larger team, managing bigger, more complex projects, making higher-level decisions.
Decisions that impact the whole import-export operation.
You might also get involved in mentoring and developing other professionals.
Contributing to the growth and success of the organization as a whole.
It's a great way to make a lasting impact.
Now, what about those other potential career paths? RoleCatcher mentioned Global Trade Compliance Manager, International Sales Manager, and Supply Chain Manager.
All fascinating options. Let's start with Global Trade Compliance Manager.
What does that role typically focus on?
It's all about compliance, making sure the company's import-export operations are following all the rules and regulations.
Those international trade agreements.
You got to stay up to date on that ever-changing landscape. Assess and mitigate risks, implement compliance programs, work closely with legal and regulatory authorities.
It's a highly specialized role.
And it's in high demand. Companies need experts to navigate the complexities of international trade and avoid those costly penalties or legal issues.
Okay, let's shift gears to international sales manager. What does that role entail?
Now, this is where your knowledge of international markets and your ability to build those relationships really shines. An international sales manager is all about developing and implementing sales strategies for overseas markets,
Identifying potential customers, negotiating contracts.
managing sales teams, and building those strong relationships with clients across borders.
It sounds fast-paced and dynamic.
It is. You need strong communication and negotiation skills, cultural sensitivity, and a passion for building new business opportunities.
Perfect for someone who loves the thrill of the deal and thrives in diverse cultural contexts.
It can be really rewarding financially, too, and you often get to travel and experience those different cultures firsthand.
Now, the last one RoleCatcher highlighted is supply chain manager. This seems like a natural fit for someone who's got a good grasp of logistics.
Definitely. You're overseeing that whole flow of goods from sourcing to delivery.
Managing relationships with suppliers, manufacturers, shipping companies.
Distribution centers. It's all about optimizing those processes, reducing costs, ensuring timely delivery.
Maintaining quality control across the board.
It's a very strategic role. You need those analytical skills, problem-solving abilities, and a deep understanding of global logistics.
It sounds challenging, but incredibly rewarding.
It is, especially for someone who enjoys solving those complex problems, working with all those different players, and making a tangible impact on the efficiency of a global operation.
Wow, we've really come full circle here. From the nitty-gritty of those interview questions to those exciting career advancements.
It's a multifaceted, dynamic career path with a lot of possibilities.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on that theme we've been circling back to. The importance of those human skills in a world increasingly driven by AI and automation.
It's something we can't emphasize enough.
We talked about communication, collaboration, cultural sensitivity.
Building those strong relationships. But how do those actually play out in the day-to-day work of an import-export manager? I think that's a question worth exploring further.
I'm all ears. Let's get into some specifics. How do those skills translate into real-world actions and outcomes?
It's all about bringing that human touch to what can often feel like a very technical, data-driven field.
All right, so let's get practical here. How do those human skills actually show up in the day-to-day work of an import-export manager?
Well, think about those tense negotiations with overseas suppliers. We talked about the importance of understanding cultural nuances, building rapport. Those are human skills in action.
It's not just about getting the best price.
Exactly. It's about building a relationship, understanding their needs, and finding a solution that works for everyone.
And that takes empathy, active listening, clear communication, all those things we've been highlighting.
And it's not just suppliers either. Think about customer service. In the computer industry, things can go wrong. Shipments get delayed, products get damaged.
And how you handle those situations can make or break your reputation.
Right. So when a customer is frustrated, it's about using those human skills to de-escalate the situation, listening to their concerns, offering solutions, and ultimately making them feel heard and valued.
That can turn a negative experience into a positive one.
Exactly. It's about building trust, even when things get tough. And then internally, you've got your team.
You're leading a team of people, often from diverse backgrounds and with different working styles.
And that requires strong leadership skills, the ability to motivate and inspire, to delegate effectively, and to create a positive and collaborative work environment.
So it's about more than just giving orders and expecting people to follow them.
Right. It's about creating a shared vision, empowering your team members, and recognizing their contributions. It's about celebrating successes together and learning from those inevitable setbacks.
So in a nutshell, it's about bringing that human element to every aspect of the job, treating suppliers, customers, and colleagues with respect, understanding, and a genuine desire to build strong relationships.
Exactly. Those are the things that AI and automation can't replicate, and they're becoming increasingly valuable in today's global business world.
And speaking of AI, let's not forget about those incredible tools that RoleCatcher offers. We've talked about their CV and cover letter builder, their AI-powered interview practice platform, all designed to help you put your best foot forward and really stand out in this competitive job market.
These tools can give you a real edge. They can help you refine your message, highlight your most relevant skills, and practice your delivery.
It's like having a whole team of career coaches and mentors right at your fingertips. So to our listeners who are gearing up for that big import-export manager interview, remember, you've got this.
You've got the knowledge, the skills, and now, thanks to RoleCatcher, you've got the tools to succeed.
Don't be afraid to embrace those human skills, to showcase your personality, and to demonstrate your passion for this exciting field. The world of import-export is waiting for you.
So go out there and make your mark.